Yeah, good evening and welcome everybody, Mr. Wissmann. Again, my name is Christop Asche. I'm the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Business Insider Germany. And I'm very happy to lead tonight's discussion on digitization, probably one of the most fascinating transformations we're seeing in the mobility sector. I have 5 very interesting guests up here on stage with me, who are all leading managers and experts in their industry and who are at the forefront of shaping the future of mobility. And I'd like to start things off with a short but slightly more detailed introduction than we've already heard from Alyosha. So next to me we have Orit Shifman. Nice to have you. She's the founder and group CEO of OSR Enterprises, a Switzerland-based high-tech company that has developed a new central AI platform for the new mobility world. Next to Orit, we have Patrick Little. Patrick is Senior Vice President and General Manager for Automotive at Qualcomm Technologies. Qualcomm is one of the global leaders in innovation and invention in the mobile industry and is known as the global leader in cellular technology for the connected cars. Then we have Hendriks. Han is Chief Technology Officer at Yanfeng Automotive Interiors. Yanfeng is a global company and the world's largest supplier of automotive interior components like instrument panels, door consoles, and floor panels. And we're very happy to have Claudius Leibfritz. He is the CEO of Allianz Automotive, and amongst other things, he deals with the important question, what happens when we have an accident with self-driving cars? And Allianz Automotive also has an increasing focus on research and development within the mobility sector. And last but not least, we have Christop Stadeler, the head of automotive strategy at Facebook. Christoph and Facebook work on interesting concepts of cooperating with the automotive industry, not only in the area of digital marketing, but also as partners in the fields of artificial intelligence and virtual reality. Great to have you on stage. So, Patrick, a few years back, when we talked about cars, we had something in mind that was very individual, like a single unit on 4 wheels. In the future, there will probably be a large network of cars. Qualcomm actually just revealed a new chipset that is supposed to help communicate cars. How would you describe the role connectivity will play in future vehicles?
Good, really great question. Connectivity, I think, is one of the horizontal enablers across the transformations that are going on, the multiple transformations that are going on across automotive. And started years ago, maybe 15 years ago, with GM OnStar, just wanting to provide simple emergency access. And that has quickly evolved into, well, it's quickly evolved into bringing this into the car, where I think all of us want to be able to stream our media and get our contacts and being able to access any cloud service that we might want. And so that's the challenge almost of yesterday already. The chip rate of innovation is moving so quickly. The new challenge is the chip that you just mentioned, and that is connecting the car to everything around it. So we've been talking about this in the industry for some period of time. How much safer would it be if we could connect car to car, or car to infrastructure, or car to pedestrians stepping off a curb, or to access real-time maps from the cloud? And so recently at Qualcomm, we just decided to break the chicken and the egg. We announced our cellular V2X solution, which frankly will enable the car to connect to its entire environment. And so the reason why that's important is you need to have a really 360-degree envelope of things that you're looking at to be able to properly drive a car and drive it safely. This really ties into autonomy, which we'll discuss a little later, I hope, to be able to get the full electronic envelope around the car. So connectivity, I think, is not only in and of itself very important for our convenience and our personalization, and ultimately for our safety, but I think it's the enabler across many of these transformations, particularly as we start to look out to full autonomy. Those cars will need to be connected. And so I travel quite a bit throughout Europe and throughout the globe, and almost every automaker has come to me now and said that every one of their cars has to be connected very soon. So not only the premium cars that can afford it, but really across the board, cars to be safe, cars to be productive, cars to fit into our life cycle, they need to be connected now. And so I think connectivity is one of these horizontal enablers that is really going to help propel the industry forward. And honestly, I think in terms of cellular V2X, it's going to be responsible for saving quite a few lives because it'll give us that electronic envelope that gives us better visibility.
So Patrick, do you think eventually autonomous vehicles will drive better than we all do in the future?
Okay, I have this argument at the dinner table quite often. My short answer to that is absolutely, the machines will drive the car better than you guys out there. I don't know about us, pretty good drivers. But for sure, over time, the machines will drive cars better. And here's the reason why. If you break down the autonomous car into some 3 simple steps, sense the world around you, think about all that sensing, and then act. So apply the brakes or deploy an airbag. If you look at those 3 steps, sensing, we have 5 senses. We use some of them when we drive. Sometimes we're texting or we're angry about the last meeting that we left. So sometimes sensing we're not so good at. We get distracted. A machine can bring LiDAR and radar and the cellular V2X that I just mentioned, and camera technology and GNSS position technology. Bring all these together to get a really good 360-degree electronic view of what's going on around the car and even miles down the road. So let's give the sensing one to the machines. I think that that's an easy one. The last piece is actuation. Well, who's better at actuating? Me on a brake, how quickly I can press the brake, or how quickly a machine can do that? I think we have to give that one to the machine also. The one in the middle is to think, and I think that's the one we're all struggling with. And so that's the reason why I think full autonomy, level 5 autonomy, is probably 15 to even 25 years away, because now we're getting into really complex moral equations. When you're driving a car, it's very simple if you're on a freeway or a highway and you're just following the next car. That's level 3 autonomy, quite achievable in the immediate term. But what if you're driving through an intersection and it's full of people and you have to make the decision, or the car has to make the decision, do I plow through those people or do I drive the driver into a pole? Those are my only options. And so I think the algorithms being ready to make these complex social, cultural, moral decisions, it's quite far down the line. And our company works on many of these algorithms with partners. I think that the time for full autonomy will be down the road. But honestly, I think in the fullness of time, the machines are going to do it better. And then ultimately, some 20, 25 years from now, I don't think you'll personally be able to be insured. I think your insurance agent will eventually send you a letter to say, sorry, you personally are not insurable, but we'll give your car a policy. So that's my view on autonomous cars.
Yeah. Christop, we've just heard a very interesting keynote from Google. What's the Facebook kind of perspective on the future, what's the main thing that is influencing the direction of future mobility from your point?
I think the world is going mobile, and I have to apologize, it's not automobile, it's smartphone mobile. And the speed and scale that we see on how mobile devices are becoming at the center of people's lives is unprecedented. If I look at the disruptors that we talk about a lot, like the Ubers, Lyfts, and Didis in China, all of those companies are built on a mobile phone. All those companies scale on a mobile phone, and I think this is really important for the auto industry to understand, is that it's not the car at the center of everything, it's really the mobile phone at the center of that experience. And if you look at the supply side, on the demand side, on the consumer side, we have 2.8 billion smartphones out there. So there's a likelihood to reach a massive audience if your business is built on a phone rather than on a car, which allows you to capture maybe 10, 20, 30 million over the next years to come. And I think this is something where we, from our perspective and our experience, being privileged to service 2 billion people globally, I think we have quite some lessons learned, we have quite some experience and expertise together with our partners in the auto industry on how to design those mobility solutions and also how to scale them. because your CFOs will be much happier if you have 500 or 900 million users instead of just 20 million that most of those services have today. So I think that's the massive and #1 trend that we see.
And we talked earlier, Christop, and we talked a lot about artificial intelligence, for example, or virtual reality. How do these things impact future mobility needs in terms of the Facebook perspective?
I think it's, I mean, we saw the Google presentation. I think artificial intelligence is much more than a buzzword. I think it's just basically, it's one of those natural ingredients that we will see in things. Now, to give you a very concrete example, if you look at Facebook, most of what we do is video content and imagery, and it's billions of content of videos that we are providing, and our job is to provide the right information to the right people. So we have a natural interest to be able, with artificial intelligence, to read and analyze video content. For us, it's vital. If you look at the car industry, and we just saw the example of like a machine making a decision, the sensors don't make the decision. This will be based on understanding video content. So interestingly enough, Facebook is working on things that might be beneficial. We haven't yet explored it properly. That might be beneficial to the car industry. And in the idea of better together, we just see opportunity here to join forces. On VR, it's another thing, because VR for us is a social experience. People think of VR of like people put on a headset and you never see them again. For us, it's a social experience where people can meet. Now, if you think about applications for the auto industry, the obvious one is marketing and retail, and we've got one example on display in our booth. But more importantly, you can think of a design studio in California and Chinese customers, and they have a car clinic in a virtual world. You have suppliers and your internal costs and auditing teams, and you have opportunities to meet and to discuss about objects that are in that virtual room. And I think the impact that this will have on how cars are built and designed in the future will be dramatic. And just to close on this one, there's another thing, is that virtual reality will help to at least partly replace physical movement. You will be able to do jobs differently. There's things that you want to visit and see that you might see and visit differently with a pair of headsets on. So I think we also have to look at how does virtual reality impact physical mobility, and how can we factor this into business models that we're going to create. So those are the big bets for us, and I think this is where we just, as partners, would like to share some of the knowledge and expertise that we bring.
There was actually a McKinsey report from last year saying that people, like the average time of people spending in cars is about 50 minutes. So I looked that up before that discussion. And then I wanted to know how much time people spend on Facebook platforms. And I found an article from last year, surprisingly, saying that Facebook users spend 50 to 60 minutes per day on Facebook platforms. So that seems like a whole new market opening for you. So how do you see Facebook's role in this area?
Okay, now this is an interesting one, and I'm not going to make a lot of friends here. If you look down at the fantastic cars and the visions that we see, the autonomous car seems to be living room on wheels. And like in good old times, we have got this one screen where everybody sits in front of and is consuming content. Now think of the airline industry, where the flight attendant came in, pulled down the screen, and everybody was watching the same movie. This smells a bit 70s to my taste. Now I think we are, in the auto industry, obsessed by owning a screen in a car. You should think of people bring their own screen. What kind of software, what kind of services can you bring? Because, of course, for us, this means 60 more minutes for people to spend time on Facebook and Instagram. It'll be time spent on mobile devices. And today, 1 out of 5 minutes is spent with us. So we absolutely appreciate autonomous driving, because we just embrace a whole new time spent with us and jointly with your services. So yes, I think it's a brilliant future, although I personally will not be insured in future times from this gentleman here because of my reckless driving skills in the autonomous world.
I'd like to switch to another industry, Hen. We had the chance to chat before tonight's event, and you talked a lot about the interior of cars being the next living space. So what's behind that concept?
Yeah, so we heard from the previous speakers already that there is a handful of really disruptive trends in our business. And the cool thing is that everybody agrees what these 4 or 5 trends are. Car companies, suppliers, everybody in this business, it's autonomous, electric, shared, and so forth. So for us, the really cool thing is that they all impact the interior of a car in a significant way. So starting with the electric engine, an electric engine, first of all, is more of a standardized component compared to a combustion engine. So for car makers to differentiate, it will be more difficult through engine and horsepower and so forth. So more opportunity for the interior. Then the electric engine offers a flat loading floor and create a larger interior space. So it influences the interior. Autonomous driving. So imagine what you can do with your 50-minute commute if you don't have to drive. And that's where we spend a lot of time figuring out what people would like to do. We categorize in 2 categories. They either do things to relax or they do things that have to do with work. So coming up with an interior that enables this different behavior in the vehicle. So a lot of change. And then shared mobility. I think it was Mark who mentioned it already. He likes to have his car automatically cleaned. Well, think about a shared mobility vehicle of BMW. Right now, the brand experience of a BMW is defined by 4 years of ownership with 4 people in a family. Now, with shared mobility, and BMW is participating in that, obviously, the experience with the brand is being defined by a 20-minute ride by 4,000 people. So what's important for the brand in a shared mobility vehicle? So first of all, you want it to be clean, right? So we're thinking about solutions that help the interior be clean all the time. Antimicrobial surfaces, self-healing surfaces, self-cleaning surfaces, and technologies that make sure you do not forget things in the car when you leave the car. So for us, very exciting time.
I did see one thing at CES where they had an interior demo where the steering wheel collapsed and went into the dash. I'm still having a tough time dealing with that. Was that your car?
Yes.
That one just left quite an impression.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Orit, a lot of the guys sitting in the audience, they passed your booth, and maybe they were like me. They were surprised of what they saw. It was like a monstrous machine standing in the middle of your booth, and I heard something of like it being a brain. Maybe you can share a few words on what you are exhibiting here.
Hi, everybody. So the monstrous thing you saw is the demonstration of what our brain can enable, which is pretty much everything. So I founded the company in 2011, and since then we developed the brain of the next generation car, which basically eliminates the need of the multiple issues that the current architecture of the car is based on. Mainly, it was designed in order to achieve cybersecurity for the car. So everybody is talking about the car of tomorrow, but the car of tomorrow is something which is, if not treated right, can be a very dangerous thing. It's a life capsule, okay? When people don't even think about the hazards it can take you to. Just even thinking about sensors that everybody is now starting to use, AI sensors. If this sensors is being misled by hackers, then the information that you can get into the car, and by that the car is making decisions, can be quite a catastrophe. So it comes from, first it comes from the notion that the car of tomorrow cannot be built over the infrastructure of the old architecture. We need to shift. But a shift is a difficult thing. So with our platform, which is a configurable platform, which is building as a mix and match platform, the OEMs basically can take and configure their own flavor based on their development stages. Now, the idea is to fasten time to market. OEMs today are really developing and innovating great things, but to take these innovations and to put them in real time, in real car, is something which is not trivial. Our brain is making this more than trivial. Again, this is a multi-domain AI brain that is the ultimate enabler for OEMs to take their innovation, take their IPIs, and bring them faster to market.
Let me get back to the point that you mentioned concerning cybersecurity. Is that maybe one of the biggest and important threats, or not threats, but challenges we're facing in the mobility sector?
I think this is the biggest challenge because everything is connected to cyber in the new car. For instance, we are talking about new business models for OEMs. Think about what will happen if the information that is being grabbed in the car from the passengers will go out. So it's not only about cyber securing the car and the way it drives autonomously, it's also cyber securing the passengers and their information, which is very, very critical. So there are a lot of elements in terms of cybersecurity that I think is not really taking into consideration when developing all kinds of solutions. It needs to come from one single unit. We need to have a bulletproof solution for the car that basically treats all of the aspects of cybers, which are enormous. So yeah, to your question, I think this is the key element of...
I think it's probably one of the things that Claudius deals as well. Claudius, the insurance industry traditionally has an eye on the car market, especially when there are changes concerning accident rates, for example. How would you describe your role as an insurer in the world of the future mobility?
Well, I do think as Allianz Automotive, we have partnered for the last 70 years or so with manufacturers and mobility providers and have helped to develop solutions, insurance solutions, or solutions to bring people with concrete services back to the road quite successfully in that partnership. And I think in that sense, we're going to shape also the 21st century, because there is no doubt, as many panelists echoed, that it will not be a one company solution, but it will be ecosystems and partnership solutions. So, and of course, for an insurer, a lot will change, and let me take maybe the example of autonomous vehicles, which illustrates kind of what we are facing. First of all, we do believe that also with autonomous vehicles, there will be accidents. It's unfortunate, but there will be accidents. So there is a need for remobilizing those vehicles and the people who are in transport, as well as ensuring those damages. But the question is, who actually should be insured? Today, we insure mainly the driver. In the future, we will more and more insure those who produce the cars and those who produce the sensors, not only for the cars, also for the traffic lights. So we will really see a shift from a driver-focused insurance into a product liability insurance.
Yeah.
And then lastly, as you pointed out, we see really a complete new category of risks emerging that is a challenge. We see cybersecurity as a major challenge to be tackled, and where also corporations and individuals seek solutions for. Let me just give you an example. Of course, as you alluded to, you can hack a full car, a full vehicle, a full technology, and this will create potential damages. But also when with your phone you log into the car, you log in your phone into the car, you might be subject to identity fraud, to all types of risks. And as Allianz Automotive, we have developed products that deal with this situation. So in that sense, we really try to shape as a partner the mobility of the 21st century.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And I have to admit that I never really thought of these things concerning automotive future. I actually visited the Allianz Automotive website the other day, and there was a really, for me, striking example of what challenges, what the challenges are. It was the example of a, like a self-driving car on the street, and there is a child running on the street. And then, next to the car, there's like an old lady driving on her bicycle. So, what's the self-driving car going to do? Is it like, just keep straight, or is it going to move right and maybe kill the older lady? So I guess that's one of the things that are really, important discussions for you as an insurer.
For sure, but I do believe it's not a discussion for an insurance and service company alone. We're here, talking about a broader set of rules and agreements that need to develop in societies and in infrastructure that help us to, define rules and framework how we as a society want to live and operate in a world where machines take over more and more decisions. So certainly we as Allianz, we contribute to that discussion, and we help in commissions and try to give our input and our perspective. For example, based on the many fleets that we already today insure with autonomous vehicles all around the world. But it will not be, we rely there, I think, on a larger view of the society and of the policymakers to come to those frameworks. And I think this is something also that the Automotive Association is driving together with policymakers quite dynamically to find their common rules.
I want to stay with the topic digitization. So the speed of digitization sometimes is incredible. So we have, when, in the old days, inventions, they could last a very long time, 10 to 15 years maybe, until a new product was entering the market. Today, this time frame can be much shorter, months, maybe even weeks. So, Patrick, how does that influence your work, your everyday work?
Yeah, I can tell you where that's coming from. That's coming from this. This is our frame of reference about 2,000 times a day. And as this changes the culture and changes our appetites for streaming media and content and access to services, we don't get in our car and put a different hat on and say, okay, now I feel different about the world. And so this is what's causing this innovation chip rate to accelerate. And so this is one of the key challenges for all of us. I think we were talking earlier, and I mentioned that what this definitely means is the supply chain is changing, and one company or two companies can no longer do it themselves. It's going to require a complete ecosystem. Regulators, network operators, tier ones, tiers two, automakers, technology providers. That network, that communication network is getting tighter and faster than it's ever been. I've had some what I would call very conservative automakers come to me with some very leading edge ideas that have actually shocked me. I thought, I never thought about you in that light, moving that fast. And so I can tell you that this is, I think, the catalyst for that chip rate, the chip rate of innovation. And I think that the way that we outpace it is that we collaborate much closer than we used to. That relationship between the automakers and the technology providers used to be somewhat distanced. Now it's metal to metal. I can tell you these discussions are, the visioning is a lot of it's between the automaker and the technology providers, whether they be hardware, software, services, what have you.
Orit, what's your view on that, the speed of digitization? I mean, I know that you've been, during the last 6 months, creating the brain, the monstrous brain, that you've been sort of in stealth mode. So you've been working quietly, and now you just revealed it. But how does the speed of digitization affected your everyday work?
Our work was meant to build the infrastructure for this new era. So this is exactly that. It's not 6 months, it's 6 years, since 2011. And we believe that, again, there is a change, and the digitalization needs to be treated differently. If we are talking about ethics, rule of ethics, and changes in mobile phones, again, it needs to come from one single platform, all of it. We need to first try to emulate as much as we can the person. When a car is driving autonomously, we need to let it be more like a person. So ethic rules is something that when a person drives a car, he knows exactly whether to go over the old lady or to move aside, even if there are other consequences. So again, if you have a single brain that operates everything together, you can try to emulate more and more the human. as much as possible. Now, if we are talking about the new era of mobility, most of the cars are going to be autonomous. Ultimately, all of the cars are going to be autonomous, so those questions are going to be, the ethic questions are going to be less and less asked. What we need to make sure that, again, the new danger of the new era is going to be, needs to be fulfilled in terms of, again, cybersecurity. And I'm saying this again and again because this is the ultimate enabler for the next generation car, to make sure that whomever is in the car is safe. Because again, the new era of mobility is opening a new chapter of risks, and I don't think that ethics is the worst risk of them. It's the cybersecurity.
Speaking of dangers, I read a few articles from very smart people actually picking up what you just said, Patrick, that maybe the whole process will, it will be maybe in 20 or 25 years it will be, through. And on the way to that, you will have, on the streets, you will have a mixture of self-driving cars and manual driving cars. So, Claudius, can that be a danger? Because we're speaking about a network of cars communicating with each other. But when you have like a sort of a mass of, one half is self-driving, the other is not, can that be dangerous?
Well, I'm not sure that's a danger, but for sure it's a reality and a challenge that we will face a very, very long period of transition. And of course, first of all, we need rules for that, how we deal with it, and then we will need different solutions that cope with the situation. In a way, if you look at the German Autobahn and you look at the new generation of vehicles that are presented here also at the IAA, at the exhibition, you will have those cars that almost drive independently. And yet the same rule applies. So I think the rules will evolve, and we will work with the situation as it is.
So there is one because I see we're running out of time. There is still one question that I want to ask. I have a little daughter. She's 1 year old, and I always wonder what how driving for her will be in 15 or 16 years. So will she need a driver's license? What about the insurance question? So Han, maybe what do you think about how driving in 15 or 16 years will be for my daughter?
So that's a great question, but I want to answer one other point, and this was about speed in our industry. You mentioned digital speed. I think in our business, we're used to very long cycle times because of hundreds of millions of investment when we introduce a new vehicle to the market. You need a return on that investment, so it's different than software and apps. It's a very different business. So this is actually where the two worlds clash, and we have to work together and find a way to move forward. Personally, I have a 7-month-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. I don't think they will need to get a driver's license like we did in our past.
All right.
Yes.
So I have one last question for Christop. Christop, the IAA Motor Show is known for being well known in the world. So, and how important is it for you and for Facebook to exchange with potential partners?
I think this is in the context of the first question of innovation and speed. There are two things that we see. One is, because of the speed, it requires to do it together. So the idea of I develop for myself and keep all my wisdom to myself is no longer the formula. Whatever we do technology, we open up and we collaborate. And the second thing is skills. And I think the job is not that very few people know how to do it. I think our job is to make sure that even people who now work in a more traditional automotive industry are taken with us on their journey, and that we allow them to understand artificial intelligence, take away fear, and really make sure that we jointly develop these skills to get the entire industry ready for the future. And I think that's how we look at the things. It's open, it's partnership, it's collaborative, and that's basically what we are and how we are.
All right, we already heard the music. That's the sign. Time is up. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a great discussion.